but talking about the idea that Carney is bootlicking and that other world leaders are too. I wonder, can opposition parties talk like that?
The outlook's becoming quite grim here. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today it's become quite prevalent that Mark Carney has promised a lot of things with a lot of money, and he's recently lost a lot out of his budget. If he goes forward with his campaign promises, he's going to absolutely bankrupt Canada. Let's jump into this. We got Kirk posting this one. Some Canadian prisons now have clinics where inmates can freely use smuggled street candy. What level of stupidity do we have going on here? While prison guards can normally seize the bad stuff from inmates, they can't do so if the inmate is en route to an I can't read this stuff. The prevention service visit. The stupidity in our country is off the charts. It is beyond the charts. We couldn't make a chart big enough to contain it at this point. Unreal. Pinch me. Yeah. Our country's on the verge of collapse. If you can get out, leave now. A lot of people are talking about leaving right now. I don't know. I'm going down with the ship. I'm going to try my best to do what I can to help. I'm going down with the ship. This is my home. I'm sticking it out. We got this one coming from the National Post. It says Canadians feel unwelcome in the U.S. as mistrust remains high, from a new poll. So this is interesting if you compare this directly to what Mark Nixon posted here. This is a poll on X asking the exact same thing as Canadians. Do you feel unwelcome in the United States? I feel welcome, 94%. So I believe this poll has 655 votes. This one here, I'm not sure, but usually they run these polls around a couple thousand, 1,500 to 2,000. So it's not that far off the sample size. As Mark Nixon states here, who's the National Post polling to get this result where Canadians are feeling unwelcome in America? Is this a Liberal convention? Moving ahead, we've got Ontario car showing up in Nigeria.
2022 model, direct foreign use, and it's a white color with a very clean interior, and it's going for 50 million naira to negotiate. If you need any of these cars, you can always reach me on 090 4872 63 These
are just stolen cars. They get ripped right off the streets of Ontario, stuck on a ship in the port of Montreal and off to Nigeria. And if you're wondering how much 50 million Nigeria dollars is in Canadian, it's about $43,000 Canadian for this vehicle. This vehicle looks like it's a Toyota something, so it's still got that Toyota tax even in Nigeria. In 2004, I lived in Amman, Jordan for a year. I saw numerous cars with license plates from every province in Canada and every state in the United States. That is pretty interesting. Looks legit to me. Our cars are going there and their people are coming to Canada. Next up, we got a report here from CTV talking about how election promises, Carney's election promises could cause Canada's deficit to balloon to $92 billion without making cuts. I've mentioned this multiple times. He has to make cuts. He can't keep dental care, pharmacare, all this stuff. He's already lost a whole bunch of money from cutting the carbon tax, from the DST, and from capital gains tax increase. That's not going to go forward. What will Mark Carney cut?
Canada will achieve NATO's 2% of GDP target this year.
That promise will cost the government $9 billion this fiscal year. But a new study by the C.D. Howe Institute says when you add in other election promises, Canada's deficit could balloon to $92 billion.
This is now surreal. I mean, we're sitting on a deficit that's already probably $70 billion without doing any of these. Surely they're not going to come. But they were in the election platform.
That platform also promised to offset spending by finding billions in operating efficiencies. A report from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives believes that will mean cuts to the public service.
Now it's 24%, which would actually be the biggest cut to federal government operating expenditures ever for those departments.
Both think tanks say their reports are estimates based on available data in the...
Mark Carney's not going to cut public service because he would lose all those votes. There was a lot of propaganda being spread during the election that Pierre Poilievre was going to cut all their jobs, when really he said it numerous times he was going to reduce the size of public sector by attrition. Carney and the Liberals ran these lies that he was going to cut everyone's jobs, when in reality Carney's probably the one who's going to be cutting the jobs.
Absence of a federal budget, which opposition parties complain should have been presented before Parliament went on summer break. A statement from the finance minister's spokesperson said the government is making targeted investments to support the middle class, adding, "We remain committed to a responsible fiscal approach, one that strengthens Canada's position as the strongest, most resilient economy in the G7.
There's not a lot of waste.
Public service unions warn if the government starts to cut jobs, Canadians will feel it.
You know, you look at the various departments like National Defence, Indigenous Services Canada, Statistics Canada, Health Canada, you know, those are not departments you're cutting. They are providing key services to Canadians day in, day out.
Other public service unions confirm thousands of jobs have already been cut, and they warn Canadians will feel the effects when they apply for a passport or file their income tax.
Carney can't have it both ways. He has to make a decision here. What is he going to cut? Is he going to increase taxes? What's he going to do? More to come. This is what you voted for. Yep. Who keeps election promises? Relax. It's just money. Next up, we got this one. Brookfield Properties buys Shangri-La Hotel and retail space in downtown Vancouver. I believe this is the tallest tower in downtown Vancouver. Massive building, 60-something stories. So the price of this not disclosed. It does say combined assessed around $105 million. Brookfield is borrowing $95 million from Montreal-based Otera Capital Inc., according to mortgage document. That's crazy. They borrowed that much money. I'm not exactly sure the play on this. Why are they buying this property per se? Eventually, it'll reveal itself in time. Moving ahead, we've got former Conservative campaign manager Fred Delory here being asked if Mark Carney has leeway in getting a deal or not. How quickly does he have to make a deal before essentially Canadians get restless and start to turn on Carney?
Fred Mel says nothing came of the G7, and I guess the caveat there, nothing concrete came, but there was this deadline, right? Which does, I don't know, does that focus the mind? Was what the Prime Minister said? Does it create more expectations? Does it narrow expectations? Like, talk to me a bit about this political moment.
It certainly creates big expectations. We expect to see a deal done. At some level, we're talking about a tariff fight here. It doesn't mean the whole renegotiation of CUSMA. That is a whole other kettle of fish that may take some time to get to, but there's something happening right now, and there is going to be the expectation that something is done. And if it's not, then...
Well, and let me ask you about that. I mean, what we keep hearing, particularly from the Prime Minister, is, listen, if it's not a good deal for Canadians, we're not going to take it. But, like, it is interesting to sort of go through the thought exercise of what would happen on July 21st if there isn't a deal, and how you negotiate that politically. Mel made the point that Canadians appreciate that this is sort of a rocky moment. But do you think Mark Carney can really turn around on the 21st and say, like, it just doesn't look like we're going to be able to make this work?
I think he can politically. I think he's got that. Expectations or that support from Canadians, understanding who he's negotiating with.
Well, I partially agree with Fred here. Some Canadians are going to be like, Trump, he's a hard guy to negotiate, give him a bit of leeway. But I think Conservatives are going to give him no leeway. I mean, Conservatives are already fed up with Carney, but there's a lot of people floating in the middle there who may have voted for Carney, but are now looking at it like, this guy's not really getting the job done. So I think Carney's going to start losing support if he doesn't get a deal, and a good deal, by July 21st. You're going to see those polling numbers slip.
Donald Trump is a known entity. He's not some new foreign leader that we're unfamiliar with, that maybe the Prime Minister just can't get the job done. I think the reality is we're dealing with a president who is incredibly abnormal and not something we're used to. I think Prime Minister Carney has a lot of rope here. He has a lot of leeway that he'll be given, and he has an opportunity to do something with it, and that's what we'll have to see what happens.
And so, Greg, where do you think the move on the digital services tax, rescinding it, which has opened the door to conversations about what's next? You hear folks talking about the prospect of supply management. Is that on the table as well? We've had some very passionate discussions about that on the show this week. What do you think that the move on the DST has done to the perception around where this is going?
There's... If you're not a fan of the Liberals, if you're not a fan of Mark Carney, you see people saying things like, I guess it's elbows down. To me, elbows up is not getting an elbow in the face. It is telling somebody or showing somebody that you come in here, we're ready for you. We are prepared to take another step. But on this one, what was really interesting or really puzzling, I guess, is that, the president said last Friday afternoon that it seemed like a new thing to him. And, the Liberals promised it in 2019. It was in the fall economic statement. I mean, originally, as I understand it, we were supposed to work with other countries on their DST, and Canada got impatient, probably needed the money and needed some wins, and went on their own.
That's just another failure. That's just another failed policy from the EU. And that whole elbows up thing, I didn't realize until recently, that came from Mike Myers. During an SNL skit, he opened up his shirt, said Canada is not for sale. He bought that shirt off of Amazon. And then out of nowhere, it wasn't planned, he then put his elbow up like that. He tapped it. He pointed it up in the air. And he said that came from how Gordie Howe used to play hockey back in the day, dirty tactics. So this guy is saying that the elbows up is not for elbow in the face. That's exactly what it was. It's a dirty tactic from old-timey 1950s, 1960s hockey. And it's one thing if that's happening back in the day, you know, different rules back then, a different time. But to base your entire campaign on that dirty tactic from hockey is just ridiculous. The whole elbows up thing is so stupid and embarrassing.
I think part of the challenge, if I'm going to be really frank, is I don't remember Prime Minister Carney talking a lot about this. It's not and I'm not even sure as a Liberal, this was something that we talked a lot and put in our window. And I worked for a streaming company. I don't, work for them now. So we were kind of adjacent to this issue. But, I remember, some business leaders last summer talking about the potential of this happening. So it's one of those cases where what problem was this solving? I'm not sure a lot of people really understood that. So I think the reaction has not been that heated because a lot of people really didn't understand what was going on with this and what the problem was supposed to solve.
It was just a money grab like everything else. Putting the carbon tax on us was just another money grab. They're blaming the environment to steal our money. The government is so corrupt and awful. It's unbelievable. And people still voted for these Liberals. They just don't learn.
Interestingly, one place it has provoked reaction, Mel, we had Lloyd Axworthy, former Foreign Affairs Minister, well-known, a prominent Liberal, yes, from a few years back, let's say, but talking about the idea that Carney is bootlicking and that other world leaders are too. I wonder, can opposition parties talk like that right now, or is Mr. Axworthy in a particular position that gives him freedom to make these kinds of critiques?
I think it depends which opposition party. I think the NDP maybe has a little bit of room to talk like this and to really be the party that's standing up for folks who are being forgotten in this time where we've seen the Liberals totally move to the center. I think it's a little bit harder for the Conservatives to do the same thing.
Do you see that happening right now?
I am hopeful that they're going to take the space and do it. I know that they're having a lot of conversations about what that looks like. I think, now more than ever, we're seeing the Prime Minister make some announcements that, are really helpful for our economy, helpful for businesses, but aren't necessarily focused on regular folks or on, working families. So I think that
Mark Carney's not delivering anything, and he's losing all of his extra money where he was planning on getting it, whether that's the DST, the carbon tax, the capital gains tax. There's a lot of money that's not coming in, but he's still keeping all the promises. He has to cut something. The dental care, the pharma care, it's all got to go. I think if any party is going to be saying bootlicking, Canadians are going to take that as like kind of petty. And that's why you just don't hear that kind of talk in the House of Commons. You'll hear the Conservatives or the NDP sometimes once in a blue moon going after the Liberals and using strong language or getting them with something, but typically not to that level. So I don't know why the NDP would be given more grace to have more spicy language than the Conservatives right now.
There's a massive opportunity there for the NDP to step into that.
The only opportunity the NDP has is to get a new leader and rally behind that leader, and that leader has to build support, and that takes time. What is the NDP doing? They should be getting a leader in right now. They shouldn't be sitting on their thumbs. Next up, we got more developments from this story. This street name in Vancouver that was renamed that nobody can spell. I already said this before. Credit card companies, any sort of company you sign up to, you won't be able to type these characters here. And that's what we're seeing. People are absolutely infuriated because they can't change their address on anything.
Today an incredible day or what? Woo!
Last Friday was indeed an incredible day. The name of a Vancouver street was changed, and the cause of First Nations reconciliation was advanced. But the story hasn't ended there.
Very frustrated because nothing is working.
David Gardner has lived on the street, now known as Shmuckweemossum, for 40 years. He's got no issue with the name change, but says the way the city has carried it out has for now upended his life.
We have 0 of those people I've contacted that can do this.
He's talking about ICBC, his banks, and all the other institutions you deal with in life. The problem, he says, is in the characters used in the new legal name. While linguists and some in government may know it, his credit card companies apparently haven't a clue how to write it.
There's no character for this on the keyboard, so you have to use a character map and look it up and then copy and paste it. What an absolute disaster. And a lot of these companies, these credit card companies and ICBC or whatever, they won't even have these characters registered in their system, or when you type them in, they won't be recognized. So then, as you'll see here, people can't update their street address.
Here's what he says happened when he tried to update his MSP account.
So I got to step 4 of 7, and it said confirm, and the system froze.
And he's not alone. A quick canvass of the neighborhood turned up 5 others who ranged from mystified to outraged. One man told us when you count his businesses, he has more than 200 accounts that need to be updated.
You can't dump this on the residents.
Communications strategist Bill Thielman says the city should have given residents way more than the 2 weeks notice that they got.
They had 4 years. They voted for this in 2021, and it's 2025, and they haven't done the work yet.
We asked the city if they ever sought out data about how many Vancouverites have any ability with this alphabet. They said they had none, but said they're supporting people with questions via email. And they had reached out extensively to service providers.
Joseph Trutch was just I'm just going to call it as it is, was a terrible person.
Mayor Ken Sim said Friday the change is the right thing to do. But being on the right side of history comes at a price. With many hours in already, Gardner still sees no end in sight.
I don't think it'll ever end unless they fix the problem.
In Kitsilano,
you've got an entire street of people who can't update their stuff, causing all sorts of disturbance to their lives. What does that make Mayor Sim? I mean, one guy has 200 accounts. This is government stupidity on another level.